Hello guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to yet another video. Today we are ranking some of the best UK football rivalries. Now, I've been given 21 rivalries here. There might be some that haven't been included. Let me know your thoughts on the ones that aren't involved. There's some in here which I don't even think are that good. But anyway, I'm going to rank them. Just to let you know how it's going to work, we've got Deadly at the top, Hatred just below that, a bitter rivalry there, an underrated rivalry, and an average rivalry. We've got 21 rivalries to get through. Before we get into this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's start with the Manchester Derby. Now, this derby for me does not compare to the other derbies when it comes to the hatred with the fans. I just think, like I said before with the top 6 clubs, you can get tourists at these games, and it takes away from the atmosphere. The game can sometimes be decent, but it can sometimes be an anticlimax. I remember some good games between the Manchester clubs, but like I say, with the top 6 clubs becoming a bit touristy, I am a bit put off. So I'm actually going to say the Manchester Derby is an average one. When we're looking at fierce, hostile rivalries, this one just doesn't stand out to me. Next up, Liverpool versus Manchester United. I think it's better than the Manchester Derby because Liverpool and Man United are good rivals in terms of the stature of the clubs. They're both historic clubs, they're both winners, and I feel like this rivalry was better back in the day when there was less tourists going to the game. So I will put it higher than the Manchester Derby, but there is still going to be tourists when you go to this game. I think it's bitter though. Liverpool and Manchester United fans do hate each other. I prefer this to the Manchester Derby. I'll put it in bitter, but it's not one of my favourites, I will say. Next up, Luton versus Watford. Do you know what? This is an interesting rivalry. I didn't know too much about it until recently when they were both playing in the Championship. They are both going to be in the Championship for the 22-23 season. It's not one of the biggest rivalries, but I think it's underrated. I'm interested to see what happens when they do play each other in the upcoming Championship season. I'd say it's better than some of the Premier League rivalries. I'm going to put this one in underrated. Next up, Derby versus Forest. I like this one because they're both big clubs and it is always interesting when they play each other. I mean, they were in the Championship together for about 13 years and you'd think maybe that it'd get a bit boring and it'd die off. No, it's always really interesting. Obviously, they're both separated now. Derby have gone down, Forest have gone up, and I'm interested to see when will they play each other again. Who knows? I mean, Forest are flying high, Derby are in turmoil. But as for the rivalry, the fans, it's always interesting. It can be a toxic one. I'm going to put Derby and Forest in hatred. Next up, Norwich versus Ipswich. I think what's weird with this one is the geography, because obviously Norwich is quite far away from other teams. It's not that local compared to how local some of these are, but they do definitely hate each other. I'm going to say it's underrated. I don't think I'm going to put it in the top 3 categories. It's not one of my favourite rivalries. It's always worth watching when it's on TV, but they haven't played each other in a few years now. Underrated rivalry, in my opinion. Next up, Southampton versus Portsmouth. This is a good rivalry. I'm going to put it in hatred. They haven't played each other too much recently because Portsmouth have been in League One, Southampton have been in the Premier League. But I remember, like, some of the games they've had, the fans kick off, they call each other scum, and yeah, it can be quite a nasty one, that. Southampton and Portsmouth is a good rivalry. I'm going to put it in hatred. Next up, Birmingham versus Aston Villa, the first one to go in deadly. A really deadly rivalry, this. Obviously, when it comes to success, Villa do certainly have the upper hand, but when it comes to the fans, obviously you've had the Grealish punch incident, which is just, it just sums up this rivalry, doesn't it? Birmingham and Villa fans hate each other. The second city derby is deadly. I'd love to go to one of these games, but I would be a bit scared because of how riled up the fans can get for this. I'm going to put it in deadly. Next up, the Merseyside Derby, Liverpool versus Everton. Once again, it's a Premier League rivalry and the big clubs, so it could be a bit tourist-based. I feel like at Goodison, it's usually pretty good. At Anfield, Liverpool always do seem to win, to be honest. There's been some good rivalries through the years, and the fans, it can be a bit toxic at times, but I don't know where to place this. I do think that some of the Championship and League One rivalries can be better than this one. But they are both historically big clubs and they're local rivals. I've got to put it in bitter. I don't know. What do you think? What's better, Liverpool Man United or Liverpool Everton? You give me your thoughts on that. Next up, Preston versus Blackpool. This is an interesting one. I do like this rivalry, and obviously they're both in the Championship, so they've both been playing each other a bit recently. I didn't know too much about it up until a couple of years ago, so for me, I'd maybe say underrated, but obviously if you're a Preston or Blackpool fan, or if you live in Lancashire, you'll know more about this rivalry than me. Let me know your thoughts on this one. I'm sure there has been nasty incidents when these two play each other. Should I put it in underrated? I suppose it's my tier list, so I can, because I didn't know too much about it till recently. Preston Blackpool, underrated. Next up, Hearts versus Hibernian. This, for me, is the biggest Scottish rivalry after, obviously, the big one, the Old Firm Derby. And this is the Edinburgh Derby. This is quite nasty, actually. I feel like a lot of English fans don't know too much about this. I'm actually going to put it in hatred. I feel like this one can be a really nasty rivalry. Once again, if you're an English fan, you might not know so much about it. I've only watched them play a couple times on the TV. I've never actually been to one of these games, so I'd love to go actually and try it out. I'm going to put it in hatred. Next up, Steel City Derby. I really like this one. Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United fans really hate each other. And they've had some good games through the years as well. I love the rivalries where they're both from the same city as well. And do you know what? They've both had good success in their club's histories. Obviously, Sheffield United in the Championship at the moment and Sheffield Wednesday in League One. I'm looking forward to if they play each other in the next few years at any point. I'm actually going to say I really like this rivalry and I'd love to go to a Steel City Derby. I'm going to put it in deadly. If you're a Sheffield United or Wednesday fan, do you agree with that? I'm sure you think this is certainly a horrible rivalry. Next up, the North London Derby. When it comes to the football on the pitch, this is actually one of my favourite, if not my favourite Premier League rivalries because Arsenal and Spurs always have good games. And in recent years, the games seem to swing both ways, if you get what I'm saying. Arsenal tend to do quite well at home. Tottenham tend to do quite well at home. When it comes to the fans, it's quite nasty. One of my favourite London rivalries, actually. I know it's they're both top 6 clubs and you can get a few tourists, but I think it's better than the Manchester Derby, and I'm going to put it in bitter, although I do think it's better than both of those Liverpool ones there because I just love watching this one for the football as well. Next up, the Bristol Derby. I'm going to say underrated because I don't think too many people know much about this just because they haven't played each other much in recent years. Obviously, both very passionate sets of fans, and I tell you what, when they do play each other again at some point, it will be nasty. The Bristol Derby is going in underrated. I do like that one, but it's not happened too much in recent years. But they are only one league apart now, so will they find each other crossing paths soon? Next up, Blackburn versus Burnley. It's a good old Lancashire derby, this one. There's a lot of hatred here. I'm going to put it in hatred, actually. This is a really nasty rivalry. I think this one has had some nasty incidents through the years, and I won't say underrated, it's above that, and I think it's better than some of those Premier League rivalries. I think Blackburn and Burnley is a proper hatred derby. I'm going to put it there. They're both in the Championship next year, so that will be interesting. Next up, West Ham versus Millwall, easily going in deadly. Obviously not playing each other too much recently because West Ham have stayed in the Premier League and Millwall are kind of stuck in the Championship, but they're getting close each season. To be honest, I would like to see Millwall go up and play all the London teams from the Premier League. Honestly, that would be interesting. It's a nasty rivalry, this. Honestly, this is probably the fiercest one in London and one of the fiercest ones in the country, to be honest. It can have some nasty things happen at this game. West Ham and Millwall is going in deadly. Next up, Stoke City versus Port Vale. I'm going to say underrated. I do like the look of this derby, but once again, if you haven't played too much in recent years and there's a bit of a gap between the two, it can kind of fall down the pecking order a bit. I think it'd be amazing to see Port Vale get promoted to the Championship and see these two locking horns, but for now, I'm going to say underrated. I can't remember the last time they actually played each other. Next up, Wolves versus West Brom. I do tend to know more about the Midlands derbies because I am from the Midlands, and yeah, I know West Brom fans really do not like the Wolves fans and Wolves fans do not like the West Brom fans. It's not on a level with Birmingham and Villa for me, but this is a pretty nasty rivalry. I'm going to say bitter. I don't think it's underrated. I think people do know that this is a nasty rivalry. There is some history to this game and there can be incidents, but comparing it to other rivalries here and the fact that I just don't get too excited when these two play each other, I'm going to put it in average. Let me know if you agree with that one. Next up, Newcastle and Sunderland, easily going in deadly. I do like this rivalry. I remember when they were both in the Premier League for so long, it used to just be a bloodbath. Obviously, the North East fans are so passionate. Both got tremendous support. And yeah, they're not playing each other too much recently, but Sunderland are back in the Championship, only one promotion away to getting back to Newcastle. I'm going to say deadly. Nasty rivalry, that one. Next up, Swansea and Cardiff. Obviously, people know this rivalry. I'm not going to say it's underrated. It's pretty nasty at times, to be fair. Obviously, they've both been in the Championship for a few years. I'm going to say it's a bitter rivalry. If you're a Swansea or Cardiff fan, where would you place this? Obviously, if you're a Swansea or Cardiff fan, the rivalry means more to you than to anyone else. And yeah, this one can be interesting. I'm going to put Swansea and Cardiff in bitter. Last up is the big one. This is going straight up in deadly, and it's the best out of the deadly. Celtic and Rangers is just a brilliantly horrific derby. Honestly, it could be nasty. The football on the pitch can be really good at times. And honestly, both sets of fans are wild. This is a crazy rivalry. I would love to go to an Old Firm derby. I think this would be absolutely mental. Celtic and Rangers is going straight up in deadly. So then, guys, that wraps up my ranking rankings of the best UK rivalries. If I've not included one you think I should have, get it down in the comments. If you don't agree, just get that down in the comments. Do make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.